I came home in my shop shirt after a 12-hour turnaround at the parts warehouse, my hands still smelling like brake cleaner, and found my wife, Marissa, waving 3 red-stamped envelopes like flags in my face. "If you're so smart, then be a real man and pay your own bills," she snapped, loud enough for the neighbor to hear. Her mother, Darlene, sat on our sagging love seat, smirking into a mug like she owned the place. I'd paid the last 2 bills, rent and water, by selling a set of tools I'd saved up for. Marissa rolled her eyes and muttered that it was the bare minimum. That was it. Something inside me snapped. I'd been working overtime, taking on Saturday runs, and handing over every extra dollar while she looked for something better online. And Darlene sat back, offering nothing but criticism. I didn't argue. I grabbed my beat-up gym bag, stuffed in 3 shirts, my old laptop, and the framed photo of my dad and me at a ball game from decades ago. Marissa followed me down the hall, throwing jabs. "You won't last a week without me." And Darlene called me a quitter, like I was a teenager. I told her, as calmly as I could, "You told me to pay my own bills. I'm going to do that, on my own." I walked out, got in my truck, and didn't look back. I sat on Nate's couch, the springs digging into my back, trying to make sense of everything. My mind kept replaying the papers, those credit card bills, the loan application, the cash advance. It felt like the world was closing in on me. I hadn't been in the apartment long, but the second I stepped out, it felt like my whole life had been rewired without my consent. Nate's kitchen smelled like stale coffee as he brewed another pot. I rubbed my eyes, still blurry from lack of sleep. He sat down across from me, studying the pile of papers on the coffee table. His voice cut through the silence. "Can you just take your name off?" he asked, his tone a little too calm. That question hit me like a punch in the gut. "Take my name off?" I repeated, staring at the stack of lies in front of me. For years, I'd been plugging holes in a boat I didn't even want to ride. Every month, it was a new bill, a new deadline. I worked overtime, picked up shifts, sold off anything I could, and she never stopped spending. I thought I could outlast it. I thought I could be the guy who just worked harder, who kept the whole damn thing from sinking. But here I was, staring at my own name on bills for things I never bought, things I didn't even know existed. I grabbed my phone and shot off a quick text to Marissa, just asking if I could swing by and grab my stuff. No response. But I had to go. I needed to see it all for myself. I made the drive back to the apartment, hands tight on the wheel, stomach churning. Darlene's car was gone, and for the first time in what felt like forever, the place seemed quieter, empty in a way I didn't recognize. Inside, the kitchen light flickered like it had a mind of its own. I headed straight to the counter where my things had been left, like they were just waiting for me to take the hint. A thick envelope was there, its bold, final notice stamped in red, like a warning I hadn't seen coming. I ripped it open, and the first thing that hit me was the store card, one I had never opened. Then came the cash advance. I couldn't even remember the last time I'd seen that kind of money. $5,680.44. Each penny spent somewhere I'd never stepped into. My heart raced, but I kept going. There were 2 other envelopes addressed to me. Same thing, more bills, more proof that this wasn't just bad luck. This was a lie built on my name. I felt like I was going to choke. The air in the apartment was thick, like it was pressing down on me. I grabbed the whole pile, shoved it into my bag, and didn't even stop to think. I couldn't let it sit there. I drove back to Nate's, the papers still clutched in my lap, hands clammy on the wheel. When I got back, Nate was waiting. I dumped everything on his coffee table, like I was setting up some twisted crime scene. He sat down across from me, eyes scanning everything. His face turned serious. "Man, this is identity theft. Probably Marissa. You can't shrug this off," he said, his voice flat but firm. I wanted to argue, to deny it. I wanted to think that maybe there was some mistake, some other explanation. But I remembered every time Marissa handled the mail. Every time Darlene told me not to worry, to stop being paranoid. My chest tightened. Nate was right. Looking back, I should have known. All those times I thought I could just keep going, just keep working, keep fixing things. I'd been so damn blind. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. My brain was too busy racing through everything I'd learned, every call I'd made, every new piece of the puzzle I'd uncovered. I kept thinking about the fraud, the accounts, the loans that weren't mine. It felt like my world was unspooling. The last few years, the years I'd been busting my ass to keep things together, suddenly didn't add up anymore. The next morning, I woke up early, still groggy, and pulled my credit report for the first time in what felt like forever. I sat there staring at the screen, my stomach dropping with every new line of debt that wasn't mine. 2 utilities, 3 credit cards, a personal loan for $7,900. All opened in the fall, the same time Marissa and I were fighting about money, about me working late, about me doing everything I could to stay afloat. But none of this was mine. None of it. I grabbed the spiral notebook from the counter and started writing down every detail. Account numbers, dates, balances, phone reps' names, everything. I screenshot texts where Marissa had guilted me into paying off bills she'd piled up, texting me, just this once, like it was nothing. I dug out the voicemails too, those ones where Darlene would tell me, "A real provider doesn't make his wife worry," like I was supposed to wear my guilt like a badge. By the time Nate showed up at my door, I had a pile of notes and evidence I could barely keep together. He didn't say much, just nodded and tossed his keys on the counter before telling me we were going to the legal aid clinic. "You've got enough to fight," he said, grabbing his jacket. "Let's get some real help." I wasn't sure if I was ready to face it all, but I was tired of feeling powerless. The intake woman at the clinic flipped through my folder, her eyes skimming the evidence I'd gathered. She didn't look surprised, but she did nod once. "Sir, this is serious fraud. You can dispute hard, lock your credit, and file a police report." I thought my heart would stop. My mouth went dry. "Against my wife?" I whispered, not sure I wanted to hear the answer. She didn't even flinch. "Against the person who used your identity." I couldn't breathe. My mind scrambled for words, but the truth hit me hard. This wasn't some accidental mix-up. This was Marissa. This was Darlene. And I was the one left holding the bag. The legal aid volunteer started walking me through what I needed to do, freezing my credit, opening a new bank account at a different branch, setting up alerts for everything, every penny, every change. I felt like I was slowly sinking into a pit, but at least now I had a shovel. I had a way out. We drafted dispute letters, copied IDs, and filled out a Federal Trade Commission affidavit. The process felt like a betrayal and a relief all at once. I was signing papers that would sever every last tie to them, papers that would put my name back where it belonged, in my hands, my control. I felt like I was cutting the strings, but it still hurt. Still, there was something freeing about it. When I walked out of the clinic, I had a folder full of proof and a plan. I'm not gonna lie, my legs were shaky and my head was spinning, but the air felt different. I hung up the phone with my hands still shaking, but not from fear. I didn't feel fear anymore. Not about Marissa, not about what she could do next. I felt free. Not free like it didn't hurt. It still hurt like hell. But the power, the control, it had shifted. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't holding the bag. I wasn't the one propping everything up while it crumbled around me. I had already made the call to the power company, made sure my name was off the account. The rep had told me the remaining party would be fully responsible. If they didn't pay the overdue balance within 10 days, they'd cut service. It was a simple, cold fact. I didn't feel bad about it. I didn't feel guilty. "Please note that," I'd said, keeping my voice steady. "It's not my responsibility anymore." I ended the co-authorization for broadband and water, too. It wasn't hard. I sent the letter to the landlord telling him I was withdrawing as co-signer at renewal. He'd responded with a simple, "I'll need to rerun her alone in 45 days. I wasn't even sure he'd believe me about the mess she'd made, but it didn't matter anymore. It was out of my hands. I found a small room above a barber shop for $420 a month. Tiny, but mine, clean, simple, and all I needed. I picked up 2 extra closing shifts at work, cramming more hours in to make up for what I had lost. I didn't call Marissa. I couldn't. The silence between us felt like a canyon, a distance that had only grown wider over the years. She texted me 6 times in one day. Where are you? This is childish. You can't leave me with your bills. Her words were familiar, like the echo of all the times she'd tried to make me feel like I owed her. Like I had to carry everything on my shoulders while she stayed in the background, making choices I couldn't even see. But I wasn't carrying it anymore. Day 18 after I left, the power cut. I'd known it was coming, but I didn't brace for the phone call. When it came, her voice was frantic, barely audible through the static and the dying battery. "What did you do?" she asked, her words sharp like glass. I kept my voice even. "Did you pay the bill?" she stammered, like she didn't know how to answer. "You always handled it." I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. "I didn't do anything to you. I stopped paying for you." There was silence on the other end, the kind of silence that says more than any words could. "You're ungrateful," she hissed after a moment, her voice low and venomous. "After everything I've done for you." I wasn't going to yell. Not this time. Not anymore. "You opened accounts in my name. I have copies. I've filed disputes." Her response was quieter, but sharp. "You're ruining everything." I told her the truth. "You did this," I said. "You used my name like it was yours to spend. I'm done cleaning it up." There was another long pause, but this time it wasn't empty. It was her processing, hearing me in a way she never had before. I hung up the phone, staring at the dim room in front of me. My hands still trembled, but it wasn't fear. It was the shock of finally cutting the wire, of letting it all fall away. The word spread fast, like wildfire. Marissa must have been telling everyone I abandoned her in the dark, because Tessa called me, practically ready to explode. I let her unload for a minute, her voice a mix of anger and hurt, like she had no clue what was going on. When she finished, I just asked, "Have you seen a single statement?" She went quiet. I could feel her getting defensive, but I kept going. "I'll bring everything tonight. If you want to see it, invite whoever you want." She hesitated for a second, then said, "Fine, bring it." I grabbed my folder, the one full of proof. The weight of it felt heavy in my hands, like it was holding all the years of lying and hiding. When I walked into Tessa's living room, Marissa was sitting on the couch in a sweater, her eyes puffy and red, like she'd been crying for hours. She was playing the part, the helpless victim. Darlene was on the armchair, her arms crossed tight across her chest, like she was waiting to pass judgment. Tessa stood up to greet me, but her eyes didn't meet mine. She already knew, I could tell. She wasn't sure who to blame, but she sure as hell wasn't going to blame her sister. "You owe her," Tessa started, voice trembling. "She's ashamed to even say how bad it is." I didn't flinch. I set the folder down on the coffee table and flipped it open to the first page. I slid over the power bill, the broadband bill, a department store card, and a personal loan application. Everything with my name on it, my social security number, and addresses dating back 31 months. "Read the names," I said, my voice steady even. Tessa blinked a few times, then picked up one of the papers. Her face went pale as she read. "These are in your name." "Everyone," I answered, not looking at her. I was looking at Marissa, whose eyes darted away the second she saw me watching her. "Opened and used while I was at work, or sleeping next to her." Marissa shot up from the couch like I'd slapped her. She pointed a finger at me, her face twisted with rage. "You're a snake, digging through my private papers," she spat. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I kept my gaze locked on hers. "You made my credit your piggy bank," I said, "and that's not private. That's a crime." I pulled out my phone and showed Tessa the screenshots of the texts where Marissa had guilted me into covering bills, saying things like, "Just sign, it's routine," like it was nothing. Then I showed her the one from Darlene. "If you loved her, you'd stop asking questions." Tessa's hand shook as she held the phone. Her face turned ghostly white. "Marissa, tell me this isn't your handwriting." Marissa's voice thinned, almost in a whisper. "We're family. Couples share everything." I felt my chest tighten. I was done being patient. "Sharing isn't forging," I said, my voice still calm, but cutting through the air like a blade. "I filed disputes. There's a fraud report. I put your name, Marissa, because I had to." For the first time, the room went silent. Darlene's face twisted, her eyes dark with rage, and before I could blink, she lunged for the papers. But Tessa was quicker. She stepped between us, holding her hands up like a referee. Enough. No more lies. That hit harder than anything. For the first time, someone else was standing up to them, telling them to stop. Not me, her. I didn't yell. I didn't even raise my voice. I just slid another page over to Tessa. Proof. More proof. Like laying down a hand I knew would stand. I wasn't bluffing anymore. The evidence was right in front of them, and I wasn't backing down. Marissa looked like she was about to combust, her whole body trembling with anger. I'd emailed the landlord 2 weeks earlier, telling him that I was withdrawing as co-signer when the lease came up for renewal. It wasn't easy to do, but it was the last piece of the puzzle. That night, as I was sitting in Tessa's living room, there was a knock at the door. The landlord stood there, awkward as hell, hat in hand, like he didn't want to be here. He asked if he could speak to me for a minute. "I've confirmed what you emailed," he said, looking uncomfortable. "In 37 days, you won't be on the lease. I'll be rerunning the unit under Marissa alone in 10 days. She's responsible for the rent from now on." Marissa's eyes shot up to meet mine, her face going blank with shock. The landlord continued, his voice steady but cold. "There's a balance of $1,186 due by close of business on the 12th. If it's not paid, I'll have to post a 14-day pay-or-quit notice." The room went still. Darlene went pale, her mouth opening like she was about to say something, but nothing came out. Marissa just stared at me, like I had pulled a trap door out from under her feet. I could feel the weight of her gaze on me, but I wasn't going to back down. "I didn't do this," I said, my voice steady. "I stopped shielding you from it." The landlord handed over a written notice acknowledging my withdrawal as co-signer going forward. He wasn't making a scene, wasn't trying to make it harder than it already was. He looked at me once, then turned and left, like a man who hated mess. Marissa stayed quiet for a moment, then whispered, her voice shaking, "You're throwing me out." I didn't flinch. "No, I'm letting the bills be yours, like you always said." She didn't have an answer to that. Tessa rubbed her temple like she had a headache coming on. She turned to Marissa, voice low but firm. "You need to fix this." Darlene started to open her mouth, probably to defend Marissa, but Tessa cut her off, her voice sharper than I'd ever heard. "Sit down, Mom. You don't get to talk over me right now." It was the first time I'd ever heard Tessa stand up to her mom like that, and it made me pause. I didn't know what it meant, but something shifted in the air, like Tessa was finally seeing it, seeing me as more than just the guy who kept it all together. Marissa's eyes darted between Tessa and me, and for the first time, I could see the cracks in her control. She didn't have all the answers anymore, and that was new. I stood up, ready to leave. I was done fighting, done explaining. I had nothing left to prove. As I walked out into the cool night air, I felt lighter, like a weight I didn't even know I'd been carrying had finally dropped. My chest felt less tight, like I could actually breathe for the first time in a long time. I felt about an inch taller than I'd been in years. After that meeting, my phone blew up. It was Marissa's usual playbook: pity, rage, guilt trips, the whole damn thing. I blocked her number and muted Darlene's. I couldn't deal with it anymore. The constant back and forth, the way they always tried to turn it on me, like I was the one who'd done something wrong. No more. At work, I took a meeting with HR. I needed to switch the last auto deposit to my new account. I also told my supervisor I'd take any extra hours they had available. He didn't even blink. He just nodded like he'd seen this movie before, like it was another story he knew how to play out. I didn't care. I was ready to work, to drown out the noise with something real. That afternoon, I met with a counselor at the community clinic. I hadn't planned on it, but something in me just broke. I needed someone to tell me I wasn't crazy. I needed to hear it out loud. She sat me down, asked a few questions, then said, without hesitation, "You've been financially and emotionally abused." It hit me like a punch to the chest, harsh. But, damn, it didn't feel wrong. I just stared at her for a second, processing. I'd always felt like the bad guy in this story. The villain. "I keep feeling like I'm the villain," I said, my voice tight. She didn't soften it. She didn't sugarcoat anything. "You've been parentified and shamed for asking for basic fairness," she said. "You're just correcting the math." Her words cut through everything. Correcting the math. That was all I'd been doing, trying to fix the balance, trying to make it right when I'd been carrying everything on my own. The credit bureaus put fraud alerts on my file. 2 accounts froze pending investigation. One bank even reversed $1,060 in charges under their protection policy. I kept thinking about how many times I'd let it slide, how many times I'd covered for her, and now, for once, it was someone else cleaning up the mess. Tessa called twice that week, not to yell, not to argue, but to ask for advice on what steps she could take to make sure Marissa didn't drag her into the same mess. I didn't have all the answers, but I told her to keep her own mail, her own passwords, her own lines. I wasn't about to watch her get wrapped up in this. She deserved better. A week later, the landlord posted the 14-day notice. Word spread fast. Some of Marissa's cousins took her side, but most of the family just went quiet, staying out of it like they knew better than to pick a side. I couldn't blame them. No one wanted to be in the middle of this mess. That night, I slept through the night for the first time in a long time. No TV droning in the background. No new crisis. No, "we need to talk" at 1 a.m. Just quiet. It wasn't peaceful exactly, but it was a hell of a lot better than the constant tension, the weight of someone else's drama always hanging over me. I woke up feeling different, lighter. Maybe it was because I didn't have to brace for another fight, another phone call, another round of her guilt trips. Maybe it was because, for the first time, I was living for myself. With 7 days left on the notice, Marissa showed up outside my room above the barber shop. I wasn't expecting her, but I didn't even flinch when I saw her standing there in the hallway, her arms crossed, eyes burning. I kept the door mostly closed, one hand on the frame, like I had the whole world between us. "You've ruined my life," she said, her voice shaking with a mix of anger and hurt. "People look at me differently now. You should be grateful for everything I've held together while you worked." I didn't move, didn't let myself react. I'd been hearing this version of her story for years. I was the one who didn't understand what she was going through. The one who had no idea how hard she'd tried while I was out working my ass off. I told her straight, no hesitation. "You grab my future to hold your present together. That's not partnership." Her face twisted like I'd slapped her. She tried to gather herself, but it was too late. "I panicked after your dad died," she said, like that explained everything. "I never learned to trust money. I didn't know how to fix it." I didn't soften. "I understand fear, Marissa, but fear doesn't entitle you to my name." She took a step forward, and I kept the door firm between us, just enough space for her to spit out the words. "People are going to talk. I'm going to be the one everyone blames. I'm going to be the one who gets tossed out." Her eyes were desperate now, pleading. I felt the weight of the last 11 years in that moment, the years of being expected to fix it all, of keeping things together when I had nothing left to give. "Let them talk," I said, my voice flat. "Truth stands." There was no comfort left in me for her, not anymore. I wasn't her safety net. I wasn't going to be her fix. I told her about the places that could help: legal aid, counseling, even a job counselor at the city office. I wasn't just talking to hear myself speak. I was handing her the pieces to fix this, to take control of her own mess. But she didn't want to hear it. Tears welled up in her eyes, but then she hardened, like someone had clicked a switch. She stood taller, almost challenging me. "You'll regret this," she said, her voice colder than it had been. I'd heard that line for 11 years, at every low point, every fight, every moment when I finally stood my ground. "I already regret waiting this long," I told her, not a hint of doubt in my voice. She didn't slam the door behind her like I expected. That was the only surprise. She just left, her footsteps heavy in the stairwell. The silence that followed felt louder than any argument we'd ever had. The morning the sheriff's truck pulled up outside our old building, my phone rang from an unknown number. I didn't even check the caller ID. I knew. I answered, and it was Marissa, her voice tight through the neighbor's cell. "They're putting everything on the curb," she said. I could hear the panic in her voice, but I wasn't moved. I pictured it. The brown love seat that sagged in the middle, the wobbly kitchen table that had seen better days, and my old dresser, the the one I'd sanded down and stained one summer, while Darlene laughed about wasted time. It all felt so small now, like pieces of a life I'd tried to fix, only to watch it crumble. "Are you happy now?" she asked, the edge of her voice raw. "Is this what you wanted, to ruin my life?" I didn't hesitate. "It's not about winning," I said, my voice low but firm. "It's about surviving." She got quiet for a second, like she was trying to figure out if I was serious. "I didn't burn your life down," she said, her words turning soft. "I just stopped propping it up." I let her words hang there for a moment. I've been propping it up for years. Overtime, side jobs, selling tools, losing sleep, taking the blame, while you opened lines in my name and called it love. There was a pause. Then she hit me with the one thing I didn't expect. "Did you like hearing the panic in my voice the night the lights went out?" Part of me did. I couldn't lie about that. "Yeah," I said, my voice flat. "Because that's what I felt every month when another past due bill smacked the table, and I was told to be a real man and fix it. The difference is, you had options. Work, clinics, payment plans, family who would have helped if you were honest. When the lights went out on me, I was boxed in with shame and a wrecked credit score I didn't even earn." Her breath caught, but she kept going. "Where am I supposed to go then?" I exhaled slowly, not out of sympathy, but out of a kind of quiet resolution. "Tess has offered a couch for a short while. Help's there if you want to own what you've done." Then, like she was testing something, she asked, "Is there any part of you that still loves me?" I leaned against the wall, eyes burning, staring out the window. The world felt quiet, like everything was holding its breath. "Yes," I said, the truth heavy in the air. "That's why I finally stopped feeding the fire." She was silent for a moment. Then her voice broke. "So, you're done with me?" I didn't feel the anger anymore, just a kind of tired clarity. "I'm done being a wallet, a scapegoat, a shield. If you get real help and start repairing the damage, if you even fix a piece of it, I'll listen. Until then, the only thing I'm giving you is space." I could hear the voice in the background, someone pushing her to make a decision. "And sign it," they said, barely audible. We said goodbye. I set the phone down slowly, like it might break the stillness that had settled over me. I stared at the framed photo of me and my dad at a ball game, the one I'd kept from the life we'd built. And for the first time in a long time, I realized what I'd kept: my name, my credit, my nights, and a backbone I thought I'd lost. She used to tell me, "If you're so smart, pay your own bills." In the end, that's exactly what I did. And for the first time, she had to pay hers.